Hey guys, welcome back for another complex combo with your girl, Sonia B. That's me. I wanted to jump on here today and share some good news with you. So before I do that, those of you who have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly click subscribe below. And those of you who have, I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'm so glad you came back to find out what the heck I'm talking about today. So what I wanted to share was some good news. I think it's good news anyway. I dropped book number 4 last week. I dropped book number 4 called It's Enough to Drive You Insane. These are chronicles of online dating. So just a bit of advice, or a word of advice. This is not all about me. There are a couple of stories that I've shared that are mine. I won't tell you which ones. And there are some that have been shared with me from other people. So I wanted to take some time and read a few things, if you don't mind, from the book. Let's start with the introduction. See if it grabs your attention enough for you to hop on Amazon.com and purchase it. Never know. 49 million people have tried their hand at online dating. A majority of us are probably among those numbers, or at least someone you know is. Having said that, those of us who are, I'm sure you have a horror story or two to share. Or if not a horror story, perhaps a funny cautionary one. For some, online dating starts with the comfort of hiding behind your computer screen and keyboard as you paint a picture of your representative self. That's right, I said your representative self. Others genuinely come with their best foot forward, taking a chance at being honest and hoping desperately that the person on the other end is equal in their intent. I wrote this book initially to flesh out the disaster dates I personally experienced in hopes I could do some self-evaluation to determine what part I played in the outcome. But most importantly, this book was written to shed light on the realities of dating anonymously while detailing some rather interesting twists and turns. These stories are real and the outcomes often hilarious. In an effort to not name individuals, all names have been changed to protect the innocent. Insert wild laughter here. While most of the outcomes end abruptly or by ghosting, this, in my opinion, is truly the state of online dating relationships. I have often wondered, how do we have a variety of 90-day fiancés when most of us can't maintain a little 4-week online romance? Don't get me wrong, I know every good thing comes in time, but the growing frustration is real. So what better way to get through it than to write the stories out for you in your enjoyment? Take a load off, read on, and have a laugh or two at the stories I'm about to tell you. So this book is a quick read. It's about 93 pages. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stories that I have shared. The one I decided to share today is titled Curious Diversion. So each chapter, the person that it's about has its own respective title. And each chapter ends with, what I hope, or what the person who shared the story hopes you would take away from the story, right? So Curious Diversion. Linda's first received message started with, "Hey." First, let's ask ourselves how much or how such a vague statement, scratch that, not a statement, but one single word could possibly spark interest or even conversation. Linda had grown tired of meaningless conversations by the messaging portion of the dating website. And by the time she received this message from Jonathan, her patience was worn thin. But she figured, why not respond? Perhaps this was his thin attempt to see how much of a conversationalist she was. Linda took the bait and responded, "Hey you, what's with the long message?" LOL. Jonathan quickly replied, "Sorry, I'm messaging while I'm at work, and I didn't want to miss an opportunity to speak after seeing your photo." Fair enough, Linda thought, and they'd exchange brief messages throughout the day. Jonathan quickly wanted to exchange numbers so the two could make voice-to-voice contact. Their first conversation was your typical exchange of getting to know you questions. Linda asked, "Are you single, or is there anyone who thinks they are with you?" Jonathan responded, "I am really single, and no, I do not know of anyone claiming to be with me." Linda then asked, "Do you have kids?" To which Jonathan responded, I have 2 small children that I share with my ex. Fair enough, thought Linda, because she had 2 kids of her own. She did, however, have a slight hesitation because Jonathan's kids were rather young, ages 5 and 7, which to Linda meant that the relationship with his ex-wife couldn't have been over too long, but she took that information and made a mental note. They hit it off rather well, and it turned out that they both worked in the same industry, so there was an instant connection. Linda always thought of herself as a sapiosexual, so for Jonathan to be able to hold an intelligent conversation was the greatest turn-on. Their meeting happened during the Thanksgiving holiday season. Jonathan wanted to meet face-to-face, but Linda did not feel comfortable meeting him privately and suggested that they meet in a highly public location. They agreed to meet at an outdoor shopping center. They established a meeting time that worked for the 2 of them. When the appointed time drew near, Linda set out to meet Jonathan. However, when she was one freeway exit away from their meeting place, she called Jonathan to alert him of her arrival, but he did not answer. She continued to their meeting location and figured she would text him when she was safely parked. She parked and texted him, but he did not respond. After 1/2 hour had passed, he still hadn't returned her call or text. Linda fumed because she could have spent this time doing something else and not being stood up in the middle of a shopping plaza. She attempted to call Jonathan again to no avail. He did not pick up, so she left him a message. If you changed your mind about meeting, you could have at least let me know instead of ignoring my calls and or text messages. I should have known this was too good to be true, she said to herself and drove back home, which thankfully was only a 10-minute drive. As soon as she parked in her driveway, guess who called? Yep, Jonathan. I'm so sorry I was running behind, but I am now where we agreed to meet and would really like to see you, even if it's only for a quick hello. Ugh, she said out loud. I've already returned home, but since I'm still sitting in my car, I guess I can just turn around and say hi. 10 minutes later, she returned to the rendezvous point. Standing outside of his car stood Jonathan, about 3 inches taller than Linda, with a caramel complexion and gorgeous smile. Immediately, her anger subsided. They smiled as their eyes locked on one another and slowly approached to an embrace of hello. Phew, well, that part is out of the way, said Jonathan. Now let's address you being mad. She really didn't want to have this discussion with Jonathan, as she had already made up in her mind that she wasted her time and therefore he wasn't worth an opportunity to explain. She really despised people who didn't value her time, but instead, she responded. Linda explained that by him not answering either call or text, it just seemed to be that she wasted her time, which immediately pissed her off. That wasn't my intention, said Jonathan. It was really my weekend with the kids, and when I'd asked their mother to delay my pickup, she put up such a fight it took me a little bit longer than I expected to get here. Experiencing her own issues with the dynamic between parents who have divorced, she quickly said, I understand. Linda didn't want to be the reason why he'd have any additional issues with the kid's mom, so she agreed to keep their visit short. Their physical attraction was just as strong in person as it was on the phone, but because their time would be cut short, they shared their first kiss, held hands, and talked about plans to see each other again when it wasn't his weekend to keep the kids. Their messaging became very infrequent in the weeks coming, so much so it was safe to call it non-existent. Linda was casually seeing someone, so it was not really an issue, but because she liked Jonathan's conversation, it bugged her just a little bit. She'd text him and he would not get a response until late in the evening. Then the responses would take days, followed by no response at all. She used her phone's blocking functionality to keep from receiving any of his potential messages, but something was nudging at her to not block him just yet. Sure enough, a couple of months would go by and there would appear another random text from Jonathan. She simply had enough. Hey, stranger, he'd say. What do I owe the pleasure of this text? She would reply. Then the phone rang. He wanted to have a voice-to-voice conversation. This came as a surprise, but Linda answered. He'd go into this soliloquy about the trials of shared custody and how busy work kept him. He just didn't have time to maintain contact. All Linda heard was blah, blah, blah. This all seemed too convenient in her opinion, and she told him just that. While I valued the friendship we started to build, This is a lot of work on my part, and your inconsistencies are a bit tiresome. So why don't you just admit that you're married and be honest for once?" she exclaimed. "What? Married? No, I'm not," he repeated. To further prove this point, he asked if he could stop by on his lunch break and discuss. To this, Linda agreed. When he arrived, she watched coyly through the blinds and noticed that he pulled up in a family-sized minivan. She made no mention of what she'd seen as she let him in the front door. He went on to talk about how life was so busy and raising kids and sharing custody was difficult, to which Linda understood. He couldn't stay long, and their conversation really proved to be non-productive, as all he wanted to do was to see her. After this visit, they did not speak for more than a year and a half. When he did call her, and surprisingly she answered, he said, "I have something to tell you." Linda agreed to listen without interruption, and he began to say, "You were absolutely right. I am married. I've been married for the greater part of 10 years and very unhappy. The reason I would disappear was because I thought I could make it work, and when that proved wrong, I reached back out to you." Linda, as in previous situations, had grown tired of the vague explanation, so she said, "No need to explain. Like I said before, I knew all along that you were married." He'd asked if they could remain friends, to which she replied, "Your wife should be your friend. I would just be a distraction, and I'm not interested in maintaining a relationship with a married man." He seemed surprised by this and somewhat hurt, which humored Linda and angered her at the same time. She cut off all communication with him by blocking his number and deleting it from her contacts. And what you should take away from this? It's very important to ask questions, especially when something seems a bit off. There's much to be said about intuition, and clearly in this situation, it wasn't wrong. Not saying that it will always be the case, but sometimes you just know. So this and many other stories like it are in this book. Again, it's a quick read. You can find it by going to Amazon.com. If you just search Sonja, Sonja, Babino, Babino, you'll see this book and the previous four books. So you got a selection to choose from. Check it out. If you had a chance to check it out on Amazon, or if you're interested to know more about this book, send me a comment below. I'll respond. Don't be afraid. It's okay. Until next time, it's your girl.